So, yeah, hey guys, welcome to a new chess game review. I changed my channel name to English, so hopefully it will be easier to understand for English speakers. Because I noticed, before um, I have that Chinese name, and a lot of people just they don't even know my channel exists, or even if they know it exists, it's just I mean they just don't understand what that channel name means, so they wouldn't even look into the content. So back to this game, we have a kind of a four-knight system. So here, when black plays knight to c6, the best move is always bishop to b5. Okay, so you play Spanish, and the game goes on. However, this kind of Vienna or whatever you call the four-knight system is also playable. It's I mean top level players don't always play that, but you're not they're not at the top level, so anything is possible. So here the best thing is to take. If you don't take, they'll push their pawn to d5, and you'll have a very hard you know time to deal with this pawn. And first of all, where are you gonna put your knight? If you move your knight, then you're just gonna lose that e5 pawn. So not a pleasant situation. So here you have to take. So takes. And here you don't really want to take their knight, because if you take their knight, you just force their queen out. And here, in this position, you can't really do anything with their queen out. That if it's gonna benefit anybody, it's just gonna benefit white, because white has more pieces developed. So here I play knight f6, just normally developing the pieces. He played knight to c3, so the game is kind of transposing to Sicilian kind of setup. So I immediately played bishop to b4. So the purpose of bishop to b4 is, of course, to pin the knight and win the pawn. So he immediately played bishop to d2, so the knight is no longer pinned. So I captured. Here, it's very noteworthy that you don't want to capture the pawn. If you capture the pawn, then you get queen to e2, and the knight is pinned. You're gonna have a very hard time to deal with that pinned knight. I mean, you don't even know, you know, I don't even know what you can do with that knight. Maybe you can push something like f5 or something, but you never want to push that f pawn too early. No, f6. You don't want to play f6, because f6 just weakens your position so much. And not to say your king is still on e8, so the king still is stuck in the middle, so you don't want to risk just taking that pawn. I immediately strike to the center here. He takes, I take, and he develops bishop, takes, and knight takes. So here I win the pawn this way, because my queen is already here. He has to take. If he doesn't take, then he's gonna get knight to c3, discover check from the queen, and he loses the queen. So he has to take, takes, and he immediately brings his queen out, which is the right decision. So here, I bring the bishop out. So there's no pawn on the f file, so you don't need to worry about f3. So you can just deliver a check, force the king to move, and another check. So here you move the bishop. He protected that pawn with it. This pawn, it doesn't matter, because if takes, then I can easily just pin this bishop. If he just doesn't move that bishop. So I immediately offer the exchange of rooks. So here, it doesn't matter. He takes that pawn. You have to figure out which pawn is important which pawn is not important. So here we have basically 4 pawn each. The material is equal, but he notice his bishop is still on g7. So here you have to move the bishop. So otherwise, you know, if you pin the bishop, then they're just gonna play rook to e7, and you don't get anything. The rook captures on e7, you even lose a pawn. You cannot capture the bishop. Next move, they're just gonna pin your rook with rook to a8, and you don't have anything here. You have to take the rook, and after bishop takes, you're just down the pawn, and not something you want to do. So bishop to e4. I protect the bishop, takes, so I immediately pin that. So your bishop, you have to pay attention to the position of bishop, because your bishop has to be on this diagonal. If it's not on this diagonal, it's not going to protect the a7 pawn, which is a very essential pawn for black's position. If you know, the key to this game for white is to not lose the bishop on d7, whereas the key to black's position is this a7 pawn. If black loses this a7 pawn, then everything's gonna fall apart. So here he moves the bishop. I could capture the pawn, but it really doesn't. You don't really gain that much by just capturing the pawn. So I gave a check, and you know, basically here he probably didn't see it. So here when I check the king, the best course of action here is actually to play something like probably king to e3, or yeah, king to e3 could be better, but still, you know, it's gonna be very hard for him to keep that bishop. So here he moves to here, because that all this light square diagonal is controlled by the bishop. You cannot go to any of the light square. You went for king d5, but there's not a good move for white. White's position is very passive, so I just played rook to f5 check, and he cannot take. The rook is protected by the bishop, so king has to move, and I take the bishop, and here he just resigned the game, because basically the pawn on a7 is still protected, and here you just down a piece. After this, probably you're gonna push a pawn or something. Then you know, the king cannot go beyond the 5th rank, so you can only go up the board. So when so next, if you push something like, if you push, let's see, if you push the a pawn, go to a3, then you just get bishop takes on b3, and your b4 pawn is also gonna fall, because whatever you do, you know, if you push the pawn, just rook captures. Then if you move the king, well, there's really no good spot for the king, except you know, you can try to attack the rook, but still, you know, after we move the rook, as long as this rook stays on the 5th rank, there's no way for you to keep those two connected pass pawns. And you know, so here the situation is just 3 pawn to 1, and the black's up a whole piece. So there's really nothing to play here. So in this position, he resigned the game. So yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, if you guys like my channel, please subscribe, and give a like to my video. hit the notification button, so next time I post a video, you guys won't miss it. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next video.